Through a film strip of train windows, I watched the river coast by. Mist climbed the Palisades to open sky. Hudson Line. Gravel track bed dusted with snow. Bank rock and piling blackened with oil. Barges half rotted on granite slabs where a deer dips her head in bent reeds and then steps out onto shore ice. One long wave of white ice, night winds caught at its farthest reach between arrival and return and held gleaming above the tide. The ideogram for recognition, was formed from the figure of a deer to leap from a standstill. And when the thin ice suddenly collapses, I see the doe slide, stagger, but somehow remain on a wobbling piece that carries her out into the mist. There's the ideogram for amazement, to be standing in that splendor. Blue cliffs lean against bluer sky. Blue as the wreaths around smokers' heads, sleepers' heads, readers' heads. Blue as the blurred tattoo on his arm, the old man in the next seat, the tall ship faded into his skin. Once across the city line, riverbank turns to rubble. Row after row of mounds, a ransacked graveyard of mistakes, buried under broken images, brick, busted block, scrap metal, crumbled sheetrock, tires, charred planks, sand piles dumped on lots, glittering with crushed glass. Of the numerous ideograms for to fill in the blanks, one is based on a recognizable figure, heaving gigantic hourglasses off a train just before it bursts under a roaring city and in a quiet tunnel stalls. Another contains a figure, someone who abhors crossword puzzles, someone like me, newspaper in hand, stultified in a maze of blanks. 89 down, more lavish clues. One across. To be reasonably suspicious of zeros and words that contain too many O's. 2 across. Prosopopea. 55 down, monotonous. 3 across. Puzzle is to mystery as grapefruit is to 5 across. Rhymes with orange. 8 across. Of Aquitaine, as in 13 across. Of summertime, as in I think I'll throw away a poem, take a nap, and then go stand in the sun, or lie beside you on the dock a while and write another one, or wait for you to open your eyes and help me figure out what this little kid on the beach is all about. He's pulverized pearls with a rock after he popped them like corn in a fire, a handful of fake pearls he cast on the water, along with some bread for 34 down, type of fish, aka pumpkin seeds. Crumbs and pearl dust, sunnies rise out of the murk like stupidity approaching speech, then veer off without a nibble, without a blink. And, like 21 across, a magician who somehow tricks himself, makes his own charms disappear and find himself empty-handed in the unyielding air. The kid just stands there, staring at a puddle of oil that floats between dock and raft, its slack colors slipping away like the lost planet, turning with every move this one has ever made. And whatever made it move, gases change to moiling seas, squashed continent to coastline, greenery fades to salt flat and back again, empire and ignorance, each with its course, its color, a different color for every age, every eon, migration and flood, dust and flood, famine and soaked plunder, flight and pursuit, white and yellow and blue, the aerial swirl of snow and disease, peace and convulsion, belief and denial. And there it goes, sight out of mind, leaving me to watch you finally wake and wonder what dreamt you into being, to almost know it, but to lose that too in shadow and water, and then watch reappear another circling fly, another horsefly and gnat, dragonflies, and 21 down, the wizardry in daylight that allows them to stay, suspended in the ever-expanding sky that sweeps back to 13 down, Bombay, where one afternoon, leaving that city on a slow, quiet train, track bed raised above flooded fields, no land in sight, I could see nothing but mirrored sky and water, and the tremendous sun drawing its hour-long reflection across horizonless blue. Two perfect circles, swirling, identical, slid into one, hung there, where an early world that greeted the advent of yellow with flutes and bells and pure geometry intersects 34 across, the grapefruit. The one you thought I'd aimed at you just because it punctured the wall next to your ear, the glaring, almost magical fact of it, a grapefruit stuck in sheetrock. One warm afternoon, hillside yellow with fallen leaves, starlings began to flock, as plentiful as the leaves still left in the maples. All that clatter, so many, thrown every which way in the shrapnel wind, people stepped warily out their door and wondered what was going on. Even we, who had seen it before, could only raise our arms and laugh at what was as much a feeling as a sight, a sound, the sky-blown praise, the tumult, the soft yellow ground, now as blank as 8 down. The winter you decided to freeze me out kept the house as cold as a morgue. Days I didn't hear you speak, except in your sleep, so that the one morning I awoke to the sound of your voice and a cold draft and the noisy sparrows at the window. I lay there cold and tired, listening to 5 down, the first sign of spring, cheap talk in the dismal breaking light. And when the smoke alarm, its battery worn down, began to beep, the signal at first indistinguishable from the bird calls, but then growing louder, triumphantly monotonous in their absence, I remained 3 down, a man of my word, and that word is 55 across, disingenuous. For the rest of that week above Peekskill Hollow Road, the ridge loomed, fledged with treetops rising row behind row. By the next, the colors had flown, and for days in that gray intricacy of italics and twigs, the slightest sound reached a distant, whispered edge, pencil scraping paper, dry leaves blown over pavement, a vine rubbing stone, a piece of cellophane flying out of nowhere on that remote lake, skidding after me as I skated. And suddenly, as if I were the figure on the cover of 2 Down, a novel of grim pursuit, regret, and gothic dread, there was, inexplicably, more cellophane, scraps of clarity, a swarm of blanks and withered smiles whirling around me before I simply turned and headed back into the wind, scraping a few more edge songs out of what stays, what goes, what happens when we find ourselves in 89 across, an important event in the history of punctuation. We lie in the dark and listen, The window open for you. The window open. You wait for me to guess what you already know. That voice so lovely and strange, you can't believe I don't remember what it is. And then I do. Miles of lake ice shift and thaw, singing the changes that move as lightly as years, and the lifelong questioning that keeps me turning toward you, and one down, the origin of the question mark, in darkness and the curve and line of your spine, your neck, your chin, your ears, your legs and breasts, and my open hands, hands rough, calloused, sliding over your taut silk. They sound like breath.